Welcome to Incredible Idaho. I'm Jack Hemmingway. Today we're going to explore a section of Idaho that's often overlooked, the Owyhee Desert country. Although it appears a desolate and forsaken land, man has actually wandered its vast reaches for thousands of years.
They came from all walks of life, and each left behind the mark of his passing on the desert earth. Ancient man's petroglyphs remain etched forever on the desert walls. He was followed by generations of Paiute, Shoshone, Snake, and Bannock Indians who roamed the mountains and the canyons of the desert in the nomadic traditions of their tribe. The 1840s saw the fragile grasslands endure the first trickle of what would soon become a flood. Wagons hauling hopeful immigrants carved a permanent trail across the Owyhee Flats as they followed their dreams further west. Miners were the next to leave their mark. They came in the thousands, some from as far away as China, to answer the call to riches. Towns sprang up overnight, and the desert earth scratched and bled, yielding its ores to a lucky few. Hopes of silver and gold became broken dreams, scattered like whispers across the scarred landscape. But new treasure was discovered. Abundant grasslands, lush with vegetation, provided an immense range for domestic livestock. Enthusiasm extracted a price, damaged land and eroded streams. But ranchers took note, and today responsible ranchers apply new management practices in an attempt to try and stabilize the delicate ecosystem called the Owyhee Desert.
You could say appreciating desert landscapes is an acquired taste. But author Sheldon Bluestein, in his book Exploring Idaho's High Desert, says it much more succinctly. It takes time and effort to appreciate desert landscapes, whereas any fool, author included, can appreciate the sawtooths at first glance. Sheldon's book is an introduction to Idaho desert hiking. He is our guide as we introduce you to the beauty of an Owyhee Desert spring in southwest Idaho.
Desert is different than mountain. Desert is the land of the long vistas. It is the land of the challenging route finding and challenging hiking.
Sheldon nicknames this hike Surprise Canyon. Page 74 of his book refers to it as Mary's Creek, an unassuming little stream that eventually works its way to the Bruneau River by way of Sheep Creek.
We're starting along the edge of the creek, and we're going to follow the creek up the canyon for a ways until the canyon walls get steep. Then we'll jump out and follow the rim, which is easy going for the rest of the trip.
Sheldon stresses that even experienced mountain hikers should start at a beginner level in the desert and work your way up to more advanced hikes.
You've just got to pick your place to climb up out of the stream and up the sides of this canyon that's in the making. The first time into an area, you're discovering, you're finding the route for yourself and making all those little decisions.
Unlike Forest Service trails, the desert has few markings. The challenge lies in finding a route, rendering a map and compass handy traveling companions.
That's the main challenge, is adding the route finding to the hiking equation. And the big part of that is learning to live with the feeling of being ever so slightly lost all the time.
The lost feeling gives way to the surprise, a breathtaking canyon edged in the colors of a desert spring, the bright red of Indian paintbrush and soft pink phlox.
Desert hiking and love of desert is a cumulative experience that grows on you with every hike as you train your eye to see the beauty and the naturalness.
Volcanic forces combined with wind and water carved the towering basalt cliffs that shield the canyon below. The sculpturing never ends, the forces of nature continuing to mold and shape, forever an artist. Wildlife, too, may be part of a desert hike. Deer, antelope, and bighorn sheep will keep a wary distance, but watch for the quick movement of a lizard across the rocks or a horned toad beneath the sagebrush. And of course, that badly maligned creature of the desert, the rattlesnake, can be an unexpected surprise.
They're one of the last predators allowed to survive out here, and it's always a kick to encounter one of those, and it gets your adrenaline surging no matter what the circumstances are.
A first aid kit is part of the survival gear Sheldon always carries on a desert hike. Self-sufficiency is the key here. There's always the possibility of injury to either you or a hiking partner. You should be prepared to spend the night. Along with warm clothes and rain gear, he includes food, flashlight, whistle, matches, and extra water.
There's two rules. You always want to carry a reserve of water, and you also, which means you're going to carry more water than you might like to carry. Also, the second rule is drink your water that you're carrying before the weight of that water makes you so exhausted that you collapse in the heat.
The canyons aren't the only surprises in the desert. Some hikes can take you through areas that are essentially forests. A walk up the slopes of Little Blue Table, what Sheldon calls a plateau within a plateau, enfolds you in the cool green shadows of a wooded grove.
This is different. This is lush for Owyhee County. We have our mountain mahoganies and we have our aspens. We have healthy big sagebrush through here. We have currants, gooseberries, and good grass in this area. This is a fabulous site.
Trees are an important part of the Owyhee Desert environment. Here it's aspen and mountain mahogany. Further west, along the backcountry byway, you'll drive through forests of junipers, growing above the 5,000-foot mark.
Essentially, junipers occur in the Owyhee area in association with rocky outcrops and things like that. And more recently, because of fire control and grazing, the junipers have spread into areas that they didn't occur historically. And so there's been a push to remove junipers from some of those areas to allow the grasses to grow back in those areas. It's felt that junipers compete with grasses for water and reduce the productivity of grasses.
Matt McCoy is part of a study team made up of biologists from the Bureau of Land Management, Forest Service, and members of the Audubon Society. The idea is to gather some baseline information on how important juniper stands are to desert wildlife, especially birds. This information will help land managers make a decision on whether to remove parts of the juniper forest and the best methods for doing so.
A lot of the birds that come up here to nest in the springtime spend their winters down in the Central and South America. And we know that some of those habitats down there are being impacted by cutting of rainforests and things like that. And if we impact these areas up here as well, we can have a really significant impact on the animals themselves. And we can see some substantial population declines.
Idaho's state bird, the mountain bluebird, is one species that could be impacted. They are second cavity nesters. This means they build their nests in old-growth trees where woodpeckers have already drilled holes into the dead wood.
Trees like this furnish not only places for the birds to nest in cavities in the trees, but they also have berries on them, juniper berries, and the bluebird being a thrush, part of its diet is berries.
Historically, fire checked the spread of junipers. Selective burning is one of the methods land managers are currently considering to control the spread of junipers. This area was burned in 1984. It's called a partial burn. About 40% of the junipers were killed, but patches of live trees and sagebrush survived, providing habitat for birds. The trees that did burn generate insect life, another vital food source for the nesting birds. Junipers are slow-growing, long-lived trees. Some, like this twisted old soldier, were here before the time of Columbus. A part of the mysterious desert community, a sometimes harsh environment, but one that surprises us with its haunting beauty.
The desert is really nice because you can see forever, and you kind of have a feel for your insignificance out here, in that you're just a little spot out here, but you can get a feel for the immenseness of the area.
They're Idaho's largest upland game bird. Smart, crafty, colorful. They're known for their super keen eyesight. Some, including Ben Franklin, thought they should have been crowned the national bird instead of the bald eagle. The bird, the wild turkey.
Wild turkeys are not native to Idaho. They arrived here courtesy of the Idaho Department of Fish and Game in 1961. An aggressive transplant program over the last 10 years has brought the population up to the point where the wild turkey has become an established species in Idaho. Their range stretches in pockets along the length of the state. Near Council, 2 populations of this big bird are the focus of a research study on turkey reproduction and habitat use in their adopted home.
That's usually when the male, when he goes into a strut, then he'll come out and do a gobble. Or, as you remember this morning, they'll sound off before they come off their roosts.
John O'Neill's daily routine mimics that of the turkeys he's studying. He's up before dawn, charting their movement from the roost in the early morning light. Midday finds him going from group to group, studying their feeding habits and monitoring general behavior patterns until dusk, when the turkeys will glide back to their wide-branched trees they favor as roosts. This time of the year, the winter flocks have broken up into harems, groups of hens attached to a single male.
Toms will start defending their little harems, displaying to the females, showing I'm the dominant tom.
In mid-April, turkey season opens in Idaho, the fastest-growing hunting sport in the state. The routine is similar to research biologist John O'Neill's. Up before dawn, long before the turkeys leave their roost.
Yeah, those birds have got the world's sharpest eyesight. And hearing, if they could smell you, never get one.
That's right. I compare a turkey hunt, just about as tough as a bugling in a bull elk.
The first of these masked men is Idaho Fish and Game Director Jerry Conley. Rumor has it that turkey hunting is this Missouri native's favorite sport. His hunting partner is Tim Shelton, a conservation officer, and some say the most avid all-around hunter in the state.
How about ready to go? I got my 4. Heavy load 2. Let's go get one.
Sounds good.
It's a real nice time of year. You invariably see deer and elk everywhere. You run across coyotes. You see foxes. You got all the spring flowers. They're just starting out. He's either down below here or he's on over the top and down. See, the whole thing is you're trying to make a turkey or a gobbler undertake an unnatural act. Because generally they gobble, and the hens yelp, and they locate the gobbler, and the hens go running into the gobbler. But what you're doing, you can't go running into the gobbler, obviously, because he sees you coming, and that's it. The turkey hunt's over. So what you're doing is you're sitting there yelping and being enticing enough that you're saying, hey, leave the hens and come on over here, hot new hen in town. Yeah. If you get him to do that, great. Most of the time they don't want to do it. But when it all works, it's just, it's really something when you get these gobblers walking into you. They're in a full strut. They're stopping and gobbling, and they're walking around. They're king of the walk, and your heart keeps thumping more and more and more, and you're shaking. You can't hardly pick up your gun. It's really exciting, and I think it's the finest hunting around.
This day, it wasn't the gobblers that were fooled by the calls.
It's a coyote. That stupid coyote sitting right there looking at us.
No hen is enticing enough for a gobbler to risk a tussle with a coyote.
Just our luck, a dumb coyote gets in the way. I've never had that happen before.
Identifying your target is one of the most important rules of hunter safety. Idaho has never had a hunting accident involving turkey hunters, but nationwide, there are about 10 accidents for every 100,000 hunters. As you can see by this demonstration set up by Jerry and Tim, with an unloaded gun, we might add, it's fairly obvious that a careless hunter can easily become an unintended target.
Never carry your decoys out. I see people all the time carrying their decoys, and you can't do that.
Another important precaution is not to wear clothing that's red, white, or blue, the colors of the head and neck of a tom turkey. As a hunter, you have the responsibility to alert other hunters of your position and place yourself with your back to a bulky tree trunk to protect it. Ethical hunting has its reward, the treasured memory of an exciting sport.
It's not necessarily taking something home, but it's just the whole opportunity to be out and hear the bird gobble and get the chance to see him and how he reacts to you. You know, see how good of a caller you may be. But it's a great sport.
On Incredible Idaho, we've covered a number of stories about radio collaring and tracking wildlife to learn more about their reproduction and behavior. But sometimes that's not enough. When wild animals are diseased or in danger of extinction, scientists need to be able to study them in a controlled environment. Our next story is about captive animal research and how these few creatures can contribute to the recovery of an entire species in the wild.
Remember the bighorn lambs born into captivity last spring? They're now halfway to becoming adults and have already advanced scientists' knowledge of bighorn sheep disease. It's difficult, expensive, and stressful to a wild animal to capture and recapture it in order to test the progression of a disease that may be devastating a herd. More realistic is to test a few diseased animals in captivity and help the whole population.
We can handle these animals many times during a week, and we can sample them whenever we want to, and we can follow the disease as it progresses. And without the ability to keep these animals and keep them under fence, we would be at a real loss to get the information we need to make recommendations for animals in the wild.
It's obvious that the animals are treated well, and equally obvious that they've been raised in captivity and have no knowledge of predators and how to survive in the wild. Predictably, they came down with a disease that was killing wild lambs in Idaho's backcountry. At that point, veterinarian Dave Hunter took blood samples from the lambs and charted the progress of the disease. Now, scientists will begin the process of analyzing the tests. You may also remember these guys, the camera-shy grizzly bears at Washington State University. Well, something exciting happened this spring. 2 of the females had litters of cubs.
Hi, kids. Hi, babes.
For researcher Charlie Robbins, this is a wonderful bonus to his nutritional studies. Charlie's study centers around reproduction. Just what does it take for a female grizzly to bring off a litter of healthy cubs? And what does she need nutritionally to nurse those cubs through the first critical stages of life?
Yeah, Mom's all worried and the cubs could care less, just piddling and playing.
Grizzly bears are listed as a threatened species under the Federal Endangered Species Act. Scientists now know that if a female bear doesn't have a certain amount of body fat when she dens in the fall, she won't bring off her litter of cubs.
Frequently it takes females in the wild 2 to 4 years to accumulate enough reserves in their body to be able to produce cubs. We don't understand it, but apparently there's some type of triggering mechanism within her that signals when she has enough reserves to produce cubs. And if it's very poor habitat, then it can take years for it to accumulate those reserves. Hi, big girl. Okay. Go outside. Go outside. Anything that we can do to improve those ranges to allow them to get back up to that critical body condition will help bear populations in the wild. We feel very lucky, very fortunate to have the cubs born. I think it indicates how the mothers feel right at home in their pens and how well adapted they are to the facilities that we have.
The cubs are weighed weekly to determine how much milk they're consuming, a task that would be impossible in the wild. Here, only a few minutes pass before the cub is returned to his mother. Like any parent, she clucks and coos, and soon they're about their normal routine. Most of the adult bears were brought in as cubs themselves, orphaned in their first year of life.
All of these bears would have died if somebody hadn't intervened and picked them up. It's very sad that they have to come into captivity compared to the beauty of the wild, but at the same time they would have starved and would have died in the wild. And by coming in and allowing us to work with them, hopefully we can produce information that will help managers manage bears out in the wild to maintain very viable and healthy populations.
The woodland caribou is another Idaho species that is in danger of extinction. Their main winter diet is the lichen, or old man's beard, that graces old-growth forests in North Idaho. Researcher Eric Rominger is trying to discover if different snow depths affect the caribou's diet.
Yeah, if they're going deep, I don't worry about how deep.
By changing the height of these branches on the pole, Eric can imitate a series of different winter conditions in just one day of laboratory research. What Eric learns here can be applied to caribou habitat in the wild, helping land managers make logging decisions.
That's part of the benefits of having captive animal research, is that you can specifically answer the questions by having the animal answer them for you.
The caribou share a 6-acre pen with 3 moose and a few deer. All the animals here were bottle raised. Some were orphans and seemed to think of the researchers as their parents. Morty, the big fellow growing the new set of antlers, is a bit of a celebrity. He's the moose you see strolling through town in the opening sequence of the television series Northern Exposure. Morty and the other captive animals represent a tiny portion of the Earth's wildlife, but they may provide the answers that will help preserve a whole world of animals in the wild. Raising peregrine falcons in captivity brought that species back from the brink of extinction. On our next show, we'll introduce you to a man who is one of the pioneers in captive breeding methods and visit his facility.